Betty is a famous artist and blogger with more than 1 million subscribers. She has recently hired an agent to sell her works. The agent created an online shop with Betty's exclusive paintings. One day, Betty woke up and saw that most of her followers recently unsubscribed. Can you guess what happened? Take a look at the items in Betty's shop. Van Gogh painted the Starry Night, not Betty. The agent tried to sell fake art through her shop. The next day, Betty visited her favorite cafe. She made an order and went to the ladies' room to wash her hands. She found this beautiful ancient necklace. 3 people approached her to claim the jewelry. Helen said, "This piece belonged to my grandmother. Emeralds fit our green eyes perfectly. Give it back." Fiona said, "My necklace used to have a weak lock. It must have been broken when I was combing my hair." Julia said, "Hey, it's mine. I lost this necklace in the ladies' room." Who should Betty give the necklace to? Helen mentioned emeralds, but the stones are red, not green. Julia was so sure that she'd lost the necklace in the toilet, so why wouldn't she go pick it up herself? Fiona was the only one who knew about the weak chain lock, so she's the real owner. Betty returned to her table. She noticed that someone had taken a bite out of her bagel. Betty was shocked and questioned other customers. Derek said, "Lady, I'm a billionaire. I don't need to steal other people's food." Zach said, "I'm allergic to gluten. I don't eat any pastries." Sheila said, "I saw a weird hungry guy running around the cafe and asking for money. He must have bitten your bagel." Who's lying? Zach. If he doesn't eat any pastries, why did he order pancakes? Fiona wanted to thank Betty for the necklace, so she bought her lunch. The women sat down together and began to talk. Betty asked Fiona about her job. Instead of answering, Fiona showed her family tree. Can you help Betty figure this out? Fiona is a witch, her brother is a policeman, their dad is a doctor, and their mother is a football player. Betty got very excited. She begged Fiona to teach her magic crafts. But Fiona hesitated. She wanted to test her potential student and offered Betty to solve this equation first. Can you help her nail this task? Many people fail to solve this equation because they don't pay attention to details. In this puzzle, every emoji, including the witch, wand, and the broom, symbolize different values. Before calculating the equation, let's find out the value of single things. First, calculate the value of one witch. It's 15. Now let's figure out the value of one wand. As you can see, it equals 7. And now, let's do the same thing to the brooms. This task is tricky because there are 4 brooms in this equation. So, if 4 brooms are worth 12, then 1 broom will cost 3. Now let's take a look at the final line. The witch doesn't carry around any broom or wand. Therefore, the value of an empty-handed witch is 5. And now, we're ready to solve the equation. And the correct answer is 73. Great job! Betty gave the right answer, and Fiona took her home. There's a beautiful garden maze on Fiona's land. She teleported Betty to the center of the maze and gave her this map. Betty must find a black cat. Otherwise, she's gonna stay in this trap forever. Can you help Betty out? Here's the way. Betty wanted to run back to the castle as soon as possible. Suddenly, a creepy zombie started chasing her. It looked hungry. Betty was running away and noticed 3 paths. The first path was covered by poisonous acid. The second path by bugs and maggots. and the third path by thorn bushes. Which way should Betty choose? Betty should choose the second path. Bugs and maggots are gross, but they're harmless. Fiona asked Betty to serve dinner for a witch party in her castle. Can you count how many witches have arrived at this event? There are 13 witches in this picture. This one is not a witch, it's a garden scarecrow. Betty needed to go to the store to buy some ingredients for dinner. She began to write them down: milk, lemon juice, eggs, butter, oranges, baking soda, cashews, and vinegar. What was Betty making? Have you guessed? Betty was making a shopping list. Betty served the witches the first meal. Can you guess what exactly? The correct answer is onion rings. Here's a second serving. Can you guess it? It's blueberry. What about this dish? What do you say? It's popcorn. Here's the next one. Did you get it right? It's a strawberry milkshake. Fiona asked Betty to bring dried flowers to cook a love potion. Fiona stores all ingredients in her warehouse, but as soon as Betty entered the warehouse, the door locked behind her back. Betty searched this area and found some old furniture and an antique mirror. Suddenly, she noticed 3 doors, but there was a dangerous monster behind each door. The first monster can turn any living being into stone. The second one is very angry and strong. And the third monster has venomous teeth. Can you help Betty choose the right door? Betty should open the first door and show the mirror to the monster so that it would turn into stone. Then she can escape through the first door. Betty took her phone and ran into the forest. It was pretty dark and scary. Betty stepped on a wasp nest. Wasps were everywhere. What should Betty do? Wave her arms to scare the wasps? Run away as fast as she can? Or walk away slowly? What do you think? The safest choice is to walk slowly. Waving hands and running is too dangerous. The wasps will get angry and sting her. Betty has returned to the party, but when she saw the crowd of witches by the fire, she got scared and ran away. Why? This lady by the fire is a ghost. See, she doesn't have any feet and levitates. Betty decided to hide in the castle. She wanted to call the police, but she couldn't find her phone. Betty questioned 3 witches. Georgina said,
"How dare you? I use telepathy. Phones and gadgets are for losers."
Lillian said,
"I was outdoors singing with other witches. I didn't see or hear anything weird."
and Nina said,
"I don't need to steal honey. I can manifest any amount of money anytime."
Who's lying? Georgina, take a look at her ears. She's wearing earphones, but she said she didn't use any gadgets. Fiona got very angry when she found out that Betty had interrogated her dearest friends. Betty apologized. Fiona said, "Okay, I'll let you stay, but you must answer 3 questions. Here's the first one. I've been here for 1,000,000 years, but I'm never more than a month old. What am I?" Have you guessed it? The correct answer is the moon. Here's Fiona's second question. I build castles and I tear down mountains. I make some people blind, but I help others see. What am I? The correct answer is sand. And the third question is, I can be long or I can be short. I can be bought or I can be grown. I can be painted or I can be bare. I can be round or I can be square. What am I? And the answer is fingernails. The party was still on. Fiona went upstairs to change her dress. In 5 minutes, Betty heard a scream from Fiona's bedroom and found her unconscious on the floor. Betty asked one question to 4 suspects. What have you been doing for the last 5 minutes? Jenny was roasting marshmallows by the fire. Gemma said, I've spent the last 30 minutes in the pool. Sarah said, My frog Fluffy ran away to the garden. I've been looking everywhere. But unfortunately, I couldn't find it. And Nancy was flying on her broom around the house and filming the party on her phone. Who's lying? Sarah. Her frog is sitting in her pocket. Suddenly, someone turned the lights off. Betty woke up in jail. She found this clue on the floor. It said, Explain this code and you'll be free. Can you help Betty? Here's the answer. Betty was running through Fiona's basement and noticed 2 more prisoners. She figured out that one of them was planning to escape. Can you guess who? The first prisoner. There's a hole behind the toilet that he started digging. Betty got out of Fiona's castle and ran away through the forest. Can you tell what's wrong with the forest? Look at the trees. They all cast shadows, but the big oak tree's shadow is in the wrong direction. Eddie and Lucy decided to go camping in the forest for the weekend. However, they didn't know that it was protected by an angry spirit who didn't like intruders. He appeared in front of them and said,
You have set foot into my forest uninvited. You will not be able to leave. Forget your home. With it, you will never be reunited.
We apologize. We didn't know the forest belonged to you. Please let us out. We won't ever come back.
Lucy cried. The spirit replied,
I'll show you mercy, for you are sincere. Mysteries of my forest await you. Solve them all, and you will be able to leave.
Then he magically teleported them to the deepest, darkest part of the forest and vanished out of sight. As Eddie and Lucy walked around trying to find their way out of the forest, they came upon a river. They had to cross it to continue their journey. There were 3 different bridges in front of them. Which one should they choose to move to the other side? Do you see the weird river monster hiding under the stone bridge? It looks dangerous. And the wooden bridge looks so old, it can crash at any minute. So, they should choose this one. After Eddie and Lucy crossed the bridge, they saw 3 different paths in front of them. The first road led to a cave where giant hungry trolls were living. The second road led to the house of evil witches who needed human blood for a spell they were casting that would allow them to stay young forever. And the third road led to a swamp where an 8-headed snake was waiting for its prey. Which path should they follow? They should choose the third road because if you look carefully, you can see that up ahead, the road is forked too. It means that there's a fourth path they can take if they continue walking on this one, and they won't end up in the swamp after all. When they arrived at the end of the fourth path, they saw a wizard's hut. They thought he might be able to help them, but the gate was locked. When they tried to force it open, a magical quill came flying towards them from one of the windows of the hut and started writing a riddle in the air.
The only being who can let you in is my familiar Arthur the Owl. He must be sleeping on a tree at this hour. To convince him, you must bring him his favorite flower. Yet, if you cannot spot him in the next few seconds, I can't help you, and forever in this forest you'll have to wander.
Can you spot where the owl is? Look there! Eddie and Lucy managed to spot not one, but 3 owls standing on a tree branch. Only one of them was Arthur. If they don't figure out which one of them is Arthur, they won't be able to get help from the wizard. The first owl said, "The third owl is not Arthur." The second owl said,
I am not Arthur.
and the third owl said,
I am Arthur.
However, only one of them was telling the truth, and the others were lying. Can you figure out which one is Arthur? If the first owl was Arthur, then both he and the second owl would be telling the truth. If the third owl was Arthur, then he and the first owl would be telling the truth. But only one of them is telling the truth, remember? So the second owl must be Arthur. Once Eddie and Lucy figured out which one was Arthur, the remaining owls flew away. Then Lucy asked him what his favorite flower was. Arthur answered with a riddle.
I can grow very tall. I am of the color yellow. When I am young, I follow the closest star in the sky. Can you tell what flower I am?
Arthur's favorite flower is the sunflower. Eddie and Lucy had to bring a sunflower to Arthur for him to let them in. They asked him where they could find one, and Arthur told them that they could get it from the sunflower field that was located between the cornfield and the wheat field. When they asked which direction they should go, Arthur said this.
If you went east, took a right turn, covered some distance in that direction, then took a left turn, and finally took another left turn, which direction would you be facing? That's the direction you must go.
Can you tell what direction that is? It's north. After Eddie and Lucy had walked for some time, an angry leprechaun jumped onto them out of nowhere and knocked them out with fairy dust. They opened their eyes in a prison cell. The leprechaun said,
You stole my pot of gold and you're going to stay in this prison until you tell me where you hid it.
Eddie said,
We don't know anything about your gold.
but the leprechaun didn't believe him. Suddenly, Lucy saw something strange that could help them. There was another prison cell in front of them with 3 different prisoners. Lucy noticed that one of them was going to try to escape. She suggested making a deal with the leprechaun. She said, I will tell you which prisoner is planning to escape if you let us go. He's probably the one who stole your gold, and I promise we'll help you find it once you free us. The leprechaun agreed to the terms. Take a look at these 3 prisoners. Can you tell who's trying to escape? It's the 3rd prisoner. He has a map sticking out of his pocket. He must be up to something. The leprechaun took the map from that prisoner and let Lucy and Eddie go. He said,
But now you have to help me find my pot of gold.
Lucy noticed a couple of notes at the back of the escape map. The first one said, Find the pot o' gold in the fields o' gold. What do you think that means? Remember what Arthur said? He informed Lucy and Eddie about 3 different fields: sunflower, corn, and wheat. These 3 things are all yellow or golden. It could only mean that the leprechaun's pot of gold is in one of these fields. The road from the leprechaun's prison to the fields was foggy. They lost their way and arrived at part of the forest that even the leprechaun didn't even know about. Eddie immediately noticed 3 unusual things. Can you spot them? Even though it's still daytime, the place is dark. The mushrooms on the ground are actually tiny houses. And finally, one of the butterflies flying there in the distance is no butterfly at all. It's a fairy. As soon as Eddie spotted the fairy, it flew next to them and said,
"The fairy mother wanted me to bring everyone food, but when I asked what she wanted, she only said this: remove the outside, cook the inside, eat the outside, and throw away the inside. What I want is what this is. But I don't know what that means. Can you help me, please? Do you know the answer?"
It's a corn on the cob. The fairy thanked them for helping her. Lucy then told her that they were actually on their way to the sunflower, corn, and wheat fields, but they had lost their way. The fairy told them she was going there to get the corn on the cob or 2. They all followed her and arrived at the fields. After the fairy got her corn, she asked them what they were looking for. The leprechaun said,
"We're looking for my pot of gold."
The fairy told them that there was a maze in all 3 fields. At the center of each maze, there was a pot of gold, but only one pot had real gold in it, and the others were fake. The real one was in the maze that had the shortest way from start to center. Can you tell which one that is? It's the sunflower maze. The leprechaun, happy to get his gold back, bid farewell to Eddie and Lucy. They picked a sunflower for Arthur and headed back to the wizard's hut. On their way there, they heard a scream. They ran toward it and saw 3 princesses. They all said they needed help because 2 monsters were following them. Only one of them was a real princess who was telling the truth. The other 2 were actually monsters. Can you tell who? The real princess is the second one. If you look closer, you can see that the first princess has a monster's tail, and the third princess has tiny ogre ears. So she would be one of the monsters chasing the real princess too. After helping the princess, Eddie and Lucy arrived at the hut and gave Arthur the sunflower. In return, he let them in. The wizard greeted them and asked what he could do for them. They said they wanted to get back home. The wizard said he knew a spell to open a portal, but the special ingredient he needed was coded. The wizard showed them the page in the spell book. Can you tell what the special ingredient is? It's one piece of feather from a crow. The wizard prepared the spell, but something went wrong with it, and instead of 1, 3 magical portals appeared. Behind the first one, they could see a knight holding an axe. Behind the second one, they could see a robot shooting lasers from its eyes. Behind the third one, they could see a vampire with a dagger in his hands. Only the safest one would transport them home. Which one is it? It's the door with the vampire, of course. The dagger is silver, and vampires can't touch that. That must only mean he is not a real vampire, maybe some guy in a costume. Who knows?